Hey, what's going on? This is Cooper Anderson. We're going to do a Pro Tools collaboration today. Um, this is going to be a beat for this hip hop submission. So we're going to model the new song Black Beatles. So, as usual, I'm going to just start by listening to that and getting some ideas for the production. So, I'll fast forward through this part and then get to the Pro Tools stuff later. Okay, so we're going to start off with the drums, but first we got to load a Pro Tools session. Okay, so now we're going to go and create a new project. First I got to sign in. Okay, so Black Beatles was 146 BPM. So we're going to use that same BPM for ours. I'm not sure what the key is yet. We'll worry about that later. But to start, we're going to get some drums. So let's make a new instrument track. And then I'm going to load the Native Instruments Complete Control. And this thing works fantastically with my keyboard. So we just go here to browse. And now we can browse through some drums. Just load battery. What do we have here for kits? Let's try the DMX kit. All right, let's hear this. And just sound design this hi-hat a little bit. Let me listen to their snare one more time. All right, let's take a listen to another kit. All right, this kit seems like it'll do. This is just to get an idea down anyway. All right, so let's add a click track. That's the basic beat. Let me lay it down. Cool, so now we can go in and edit the MIDI. Just double click on it. I'm going to hit Option 0 to quantize. And let's try it with a little swing just to see what happens. We're going to just loop these 2 bars here. Yeah, it's fine. All right, so we can actually just draw in a hi-hat. Okay, for some reason the kick isn't playing when the hi-hat plays. Not really sure why that is. All right, so anyway, I had to just enable multiple voices for that kick track because it wasn't playing when the hi-hat was hitting. But either way, we want to make a new hi-hat pattern, so we're not exactly copying that Black Beatles song. Sounds fine for a starter. All right, so now I want to use a hardware synth bass. So I'm going to pause this for a second and then we're going to plug that in. Okay, so now we're going to hook up a hardware synth, this bass synth right here. So we got to load a MIDI track. I always keep these in ticks because ticks is like a musical value versus samples, which is more of a time value. So ticks is like, you know, the super subdivision of a quarter note or eighth note or whatever. All right, so let's load up this MIDI track. And then we've got to assign it to the output. Okay, so this is going to go out Unitor port 1, I believe. Let's just see. Yep, see we're getting the green light up there when I'm hitting the keys. It's a good sign. All right, so now we need to bring the audio back in on an audio track. And that is coming up on input 2, I believe. Let's just hear it. I actually have my MIDI keyboard configured to change the patches. I'm getting a little latency, so we're going to lower the hardware buffer size, try 256, see if that's working for us. And the signal's a little low here, so I want to actually run it through my Neve preamp. I'm going to label this sub bass. All right, so that's kind of the part I want. So I'm going to lay down the MIDI first. First I'll loop myself some extra drums so I can just play along. And we'll name this bass MIDI. Here we go. All right, that's basically it. We'll quantize that, option 0. Trim this up. Hear how it sounds. It's pretty solid. So we're gonna record that in as audio now. because basically the MIDI here is still feeding the analog hardware unit and we're listening on input. But if we walk away, and also since this is a collaboration session, we've got to record it in as audio. The level's just a little low on that, so I want to run it through a preamp to get some more gain. All right, I put some compression and EQ on it with my Avalon preamp to beef it up a little. So now we'll hit record and record that in. The level's still not where I want to see it. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Basically, I want the level to be in the high, like between 15 and 5 with no peaks. And this is a pretty steady sound, so we don't really have to worry about peaks. And either way, my converters will limit it on the way in. With the Apogee Rosetta soft limit feature, but that's specific for these converters. I don't recommend doing that on just anything. But anyway, so that seems to be a pretty good level. So now we'll actually record it in. And when I'm doing this, I like to record multiple loops so you can cut it exactly the way you want. So I have a little lead in before the loop starts and then a little tail off after. So I always record at least 3 loops. See, when we zoom in here, you can see there's still a little latency because we're not hitting right on the one. And then on the other side, it's the same thing. So I'm actually going to delete these other regions and clean that up. So what we can do is zoom right in, and then we'll go to slip mode. It's F2, and then click right on that, right where the actual sound starts, and we're going to trim that off. And then we'll just bring that right up to the beginning. Put it back on grid mode, F4. And I'll go to the end and I'll drag the region out. I could consolidate it, but trying to save disk space always. So I'll just drag it out because we already have this clip. And then we can reduplicate that for our 16-bar loop. And now let's take it off record mode and see what the recorded audio only sounds like. That's pretty subby. All right, so I wanted to do the same thing on this virus synth here because that has some cool sounds. I feel like we could find some cool pads on that. So we'll load up a MIDI track. All right, so that's port 6 for the MIDI. And now we need to make a stereo audio track to bring the audio back in. This is going to be virus. And that's going to come in on 7 and 8. Alright, we got it. Now let's find a cool sound. It's kind of a cool line. Just lower the velocity on some of these. Sort of a little more even. All right, so same thing. We're going to make a few loops of that and record it in. Here we go. Cool. All right, so let's try another virus sound. There was one I heard earlier on that I liked. Let's see. New MIDI track. We'll just mute this other virus MIDI. that's out the Unitor 6. And then we got to make the stereo audio to come in. 7 and 8. Input enable. All right. I believe it was this one. Yeah, so I'll just do a G minor chord like that. We can put in our key too. Where is it? G minor. All right, so let's record that one in. This is just a single hit, so I can just record one of them. Oh, and the same thing, I got to line up the audio because we have the latency. So we'll just do that with the slip mode, put it back on grid, line it right up to the downbeat. Same thing with that other audio, except that's not going to be on a downbeat. That's going to be in the middle of a bar. So we can put the grid on quarters. And then same thing, go in with slip mode, trim it up, and grid it up. All right, so let's hear how this is sounding. Cool. So I actually want to filter that pad sound a little bit. I'm just going to use the Avid EQ for compatibility. Let's see. Right here. Oh no, right here. It's frequency or low pass filter. Okay, so one other sound I want to just do orchestral, like low horn hit. You hear that in a lot of hip hop records. So that I'm going to use an instrument track with the East West Platinum Symphonic. Let's see, it's going to be brass. Do 4 trombones, short. Yeah, that's pretty much the sound. All right, so let's lay that in. It was a little heavy-handed there, so take the velocity down. Hear how different the sound is at lower velocities versus higher velocities. That's what makes these brass samples so popular, is like the different the resolution of the different velocity levels. The quieter ones are actually quieter horns. All right, and I know my collaborator Mark Dollar has the Waves Element synth, so let's try and see if we can find some FX on that one. That one's kind of cool. I actually want to make this brass sound a little dirtier, so I'm going to throw a speakerphone on it. And let's see what we got. Let's try a 1980s radio and see what that sounds like. Not sure if I'm loving that brass sound, but either way, I'm gonna leave it in there for now because I want to leave Mark plenty of room to throw some guitar on, which I imagine he'll do, and whatever else he wants to do, and then we can take it from there. So now what I want to do is separate the drums into individual tracks. So I'm going to do that by, I don't even know if this is the best way, but I'm going to duplicate 2 copies. And then just the first one will be the kicks. Then we'll have snare, and then we'll have the hat. So I'm just flying these regions in. Alright, so that's basically it. Now we need to save as a new version. Okay, so this will keep our old version because we're about to commit this audio, and then if we ever want to go back, we can look at the old version. So we'll select all the tracks. Well, I'll just do the drums first. So I'm selecting the drum tracks, and then we're going to go commit. I always do insert after the last track and then delete the source tracks. Just to keep it simple, I don't want a ton of tracks or DSP, and the whole point is so that the plugins are compatible. So let's just get rid of everything we don't need. Alright, so now those are audio tracks, and we're going to do the same with the brass. This is kind of like the software version of what we were doing before with the hardware synths when we were bouncing it in. Basically just renders the MIDI going into the soft synth as audio, so you can share it in between computers no matter what plugins you have. Okay, cool. So now all we have is this element synth. But Mark has that one. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to bounce it just in case. Can never be too safe with this stuff. See, now the only plugins are stock. Alright, so now we're going to upload all the new changes. So now this is going to the cloud. And this is the part I don't really know exactly how to do, but we're going to share this with Mark via the Pro Tools project. Okay, great. So you just hit this little plus, oh, invite another user to the project icon here. And now we're going to add him. All right, so I'm not exactly sure how to share the project at this time, but we'll figure that out and probably come back with a part 2 for this. So until next time, see you then.